right, left. Left, right, left. This is John Parker, a captain in the Massachusetts Bay Militia. This is Major General Francis Smith. Born in 1723, he will fight in the battles of Rhode Island and Long Island. He is also one of the men who attempted to hold Boston during the Siege of Boston. And that was the shot heard round the world. 77 militiamen die, including Captain Isaac Davis, and they are forced to retreat. Meanwhile, 73 redcoats are killed, but it is nonetheless a victory for the British as they march on to Concord. In 1775, Fort Ticonderoga was filled with loads of valuable cannons, ammunition, and guns. Because of this, George Washington sent Ethan Allen, Henry Knox, Benedict Arnold, and the Green Mountain Boys to capture it. On the night of May 10, 1775, the Green Mountain Boys and Ethan Allen captured the fort without firing a single shot. According to Allen, he walked up to Captain William Delapace's room and demanded he surrendered. When Delapace asked what authority was entering the fort, Allen responded, "In the name of great Jehovah and the Continental Congress." In the summer of 1775, the Americans were attempting to siege Boston. With new cannons from Fort Ticonderoga, they were now able to. The Americans built forts on Bunker and Breed's Hill where they could rain fire down on the British in Boston, but the British couldn't fire back. This meant the British were forced to take the hill with close combat. So close that American General William Prescott told his soldiers, "Don't shoot till you can see the whites of their eyes." For 2 waves, Prescott and his troops held off the British, but they were running out of ammunition and they were exhausted. On the 3rd wave, the British finally captured Bunker Hill, and Prescott and his men retreated. Despite the victory, the British lost 1,054 men. The Battle of Bunker Hill was the first major battle in the Revolution, and it sparked a whole different level of the need for American independence. On Christmas night, 1776, George Washington and 2,400 American troops crossed the Delaware River to attack Hessian soldiers waiting on the other side. The crossing of the Delaware took almost 11 hours to complete, and Washington lost 3 men along the way. Washington and his soldiers win the Battle of Trenton and take all of the Hessians hostage, while also seizing all the weapons for future battles. In 1777, General William Howe and his Northern Army were attempting to cut off New England from the rest of the colonies, since New England was the source of the Continental Army's power. When looking at his map, Howe saw the incredibly lightly secured Fort Ticonderoga. Figuring it would be an easy win, he sent his top general, John Burgoyne, to capture the fort. Burgoyne marches south from Canada and takes the fort with relative ease. He then travels further south to Albany, where he will meet up with other British forces. From Albany, Burgoyne will begin the Saratoga Campaign of 1777. The Battle of Saratoga was fought in 2 parts. The first battle is known as the Battle of Freeman's Farm on September 19th. The battle ended in a British victory and the Americans retreated. Then, on October 17, 1777, the second battle was fought and the Americans claimed victory in what is now known as the Battle of Bemis Heights. This battle was a big turning point in the Revolution, and it secured critical international recognition of the United States. Benedict Arnold and Benjamin Lincoln were the leaders in the American Army, and John Burgoyne was the general for the British. General Horatio Gates then takes over as field general for the Americans later and brings reinforcements from his Northern Army also. At the end of the battle, during the surrender, General Gates famously denies Burgoyne's sword. The Continental Army, led by George Washington, camped in Valley Forge during the 1777-78 winter. It was a cold and miserable time. Provisions were scarce, and Washington's men were sick with disease, hunger, and exposure. One of the most important parts about Valley Forge was the hiring of Prussian military officer Wilhelm Friedrich von Steuben. He took the Continental Army from a ragtag militia to a real military. The British evacuated Philadelphia and headed north after word came to General Washington in May that the Americans' long-sought alliance with France was secured. On June 19, 1778, Washington and his men left Valley Forge and retook Philadelphia. The experiences of Valley Forge reshaped the Continental Army into a more unified force, capable of defeating the British and winning American independence. This is Major General Benedict Arnold, the man in charge of West Point, committing treason against the colonies. He is handing control of West Point over to the British for a large sum of money and a position in the British Army. The other man is Major John Andre, an officer in the British Army. West Point was incredibly important. Whoever controlled it controlled what went in and what came out of New York City. Since the British controlled New York City, the Americans could not afford to lose West Point and the Hudson River. Andre was later captured by Americans and executed after the plan was uncovered. Meanwhile, Benedict Arnold was forced to flee New York. He would go on to lead British forces in Connecticut and Virginia. From September 28th to October 19th, 1781, the Americans and French trapped the British into New York with heavy shelling, cannon fire, and a naval blockade. No one and no supplies came in or out of Yorktown for 3 weeks. On October 14th, the front lines were so close that General Washington ordered his infantry to storm British redoubts, or camps, and the Americans caught the British off guard. After American soldiers led by Alexander Hamilton captured Redoubt No. 10 on October 17th, the British were forced to surrender. For 2 days, the sides negotiated the specific terms of the surrender, and on October 19th, the ceremony took place and the war was over. The Treaty of Paris was signed in the Hotel de York. The Treaty of Paris officially ended the Revolution and recognized the United States as an independent nation. The last page bears the signatures of David Hartley, who represented Great Britain, and the 3 American negotiators, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and John Jay. The terms of the treaty were as follows. It established the borders of the United States, and the United States received all land east of the Mississippi, north of Florida, and south of Canada. The treaty also granted fishing rights to American fishermen in the Grand Banks, off the coast of Newfoundland, and in the Gulf of the St. Lawrence. Ratification will occur within 6 months of signing. The Articles of Confederation were the written document that established the functions of the national government of the United States after it declared independence from Great Britain. On December 16, 1777, Virginia ratified the Articles, becoming the first of the 13 colonies to do so. When the Continental Congress reconvened in June of 1778, they found that Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey had refused to ratify the Articles. New Jersey then ratified them on November 20th, 1778, and Delaware on February 1st, 1779. This left Maryland as the last holdout. The other colonies tried to pass a bill that would ratify the Articles without Maryland, but that was vetoed by the Continental Congress. Alarmed by the British forces beginning to conduct raids on Maryland communities, Maryland ratified the Articles on March 1, 1781. Although these Articles created a more unified, centralized government, there were many weaknesses of them. However, the Articles of Confederation set the base for the Constitution.